Hi class, for this lab I'm going to show you how to actually evaluate the mean for frequency distributions or group data. And the first thing I need you to do is save the file so that you can actually use this for your homework assignment. So here's the idea. If it opens and you can't see the data set, just click on the top and then double click there and it'll adjust um, the actual cells. So what they want us to do is evaluate the mean, and it's going to be, well, the first one is the sample, so we're dealing with the second formula here that you see. And then all you need to do is first find the x's. So just label the x's. Remember that your x's represent midpoints. So it's the same formula from lab number 9, but Excel works perfectly fine for your homework assignments. So this is how you're going to evaluate the midpoints. So you're just going to say equals, and we want the following automatic feature to be embedded into Excel. So you're going to click that cell, in this case B11, plus, and then double click on the second one, and then divide by 2. So those are your midpoints. And then in order for Excel to do the automatic feature, I think I did it too quickly. You just have to drag that cell to the bottom. So if you recall, those are the exact same values that we actually found earlier in the calculator. Now for this one, you need your x times f. So the automatic feature that's going to take care of this will be, well, the first value on the frequency times the second value, and then hit enter, and then technically drag it to the bottom. Now the formula uses for the sample the sum of x times f. So in this specific one, I'm just going to color it so we can reference it later. We're going to get the sum. So to get the sum, you can hit equals SUM, and that's going to actually give you the sum of those 4 values. And then we also need the sum. In this case, this is equal to the sum of this column, which is technically your actual frequencies. Now, the final step on evaluating the mean, you could just label it. And then for the actual Excel, we really don't need the variable to be inserted. It looks awkward if you actually put it in. All I need you to do is basically carry out the following evaluation. Hit equals. That's your sum of x times f divided by the actual mean. Well, actually the sum of the frequencies, and that for us is actually going to be your final answer. At this point, please compare it to what we did on the previous lab and see if you're matching. We may be a little bit off because of rounding. We rounded on the on that homework assignment a little bit sooner. So Excel is not rounding at all. So I'm going to pause this one for a little bit. I need you to try it, and then I'll come back in the video in a minute. So this is what I need you to turn in. This is going to be your first problem. Make sure that you run it properly, and then you stick a picture of this one. Let's go to the second problem. The second problem was slightly modified, and it's also a problem that's going to show up on the homework assignments, but it's slightly, it has something different than what you had on the previous one. So let me talk about this, and this is with respect to the midpoints. How we found the midpoints was basically by adding those two. And then in this case, it makes sense because your midpoints have an interval. If you look at the first one, it goes from 0 to 199. And then all of these intervals are about the same. Now, in this case, they're given, so we cannot modify those. But if you look at the second problem, you only have one actual value for the third class, which happens to be the 400. So getting the actual midpoints in this form, it's not gonna actually make sense Another way of obtaining the midpoints is adding these two and dividing by 2, but you don't actually have that cell. Now, in order to fix this, the next class, it's going to start at 800, one more than 799. So you're going to have to input the 800 value there. So you're just creating the next actual class that you're not going to have. And then let me label this as x equal to the midpoints. And then the actual formula for this one, it's going to be the first value plus the second value. So we're getting the midpoints within the actual columns. And then you're going to have to divide by 2. Now, this was a little bit tricky. I won't test you on obtaining this calculation. The homework actually is showing you how to do some of these. But in this case, the lab actually works. And the reason that you're adding the actual 800 is so that the last class, you have a value to actually add. And since this one is closing at 799, this has to be the value of the 800. Now, all the other calculations are going to be the same. So this is x and f. So this is equal to your midpoints times your frequencies. And then technically drag those down. Next, you're going to have find the sum of that column. Double check that you're matching. And then we also need the actual sum of the frequencies. For this one, the mean is going to be different since one of the classes is different, a little bit different. So the mean is just going to be the sum, in this case, this sum divided by the 189. Let me double check. Yep, that one's good. And let me actually box this in. And let me double check the formula. The formula is good. Okay, so this is the only minor discrepancy that occurs here, and this is because one of your actual classes doesn't have an interval. It only contains one value.